All right, we're good.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Mayor Bill Ziegler. This is the March 4th, 2026 Town Hall on the Leonia budget. We will start with the flag salute led by our Borough Administrator, Minister Missouri.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
We've sunshined this meeting, which means that we posted it as part of the Open Public Meetings Act, just in case a majority of the governing body was present. Otherwise, it would be an illegal gathering. I will introduce who is here. We have Councilman Avri Ravid, who is a member of the Finance Committee, the Chair of the Finance Committee, Councilman Christoph Hesterbrink. And on the flanks, we have our Borough Clerk, Jonathan Mendel, and our Borough Administrator here next to me, Marissa Misropian. I will begin with a few general comments to set the context. Christoph, as the Chair of the Finance Committee, will take us through a number of slides. And then the purpose of the Town Hall is to hear from you. The opportunity before we finalize any decisions relating to the budget is now to receive public input, questions, comments. We catalog every single one of the comments, and the governing body through the Finance Committee takes these into consideration before we finalize our budget. So if you don't mind, go to the next slide. The way these town halls work, if this is your first one, we'll spend about 25 or 30 minutes going through information that sets the table, that brings you up to date on the considerations that we had to weigh in coming to what we believe is the most balanced budget for the town. And we're going to talk tonight about two budgets, the operating budget and the capital budget. The operating budget represents about $21 million now of expenditures for what we spend in each of the departments every single year. The difference with the capital budget is these are expenditures typically for higher ticket items that last multiple years. So road work, purchase of police cars or fire trucks, these are all capital expenditures with the salaries of all of our employees, the pension costs, the healthcare costs, those are all operating expenses. So you'll hear us refer to the operating budget first, and then we're going to take you through the capital budget. You'll see some of the headlines, which I'll go through in a moment. You'll see where our taxes are going. You'll notice what has changed since 2024. What your taxes are buying for you. And we feel very strongly, as I'm sure you do, because it takes a lot to earn the tax dollars that you give over to the borough. Value for the dollar is critically important. And that is a driving factor in all of our discussions and decisions relating to the budget. We'll look at the numbers so you have a familiarity with them. And we'll weigh in with the property reassessment that we've all just gone through and how that's going to impact the amount of taxes that you pay. After we set that context, we will open it up to the true purpose of today and invite you one at a time to come up for 3 minutes to this podium right here, state your name and address for the record, and offer whatever comments or whatever questions are on your mind. We'll take notes about what everybody says at the end after everybody has had an opportunity to speak, either in person here or online. If you're online, you hit the hand icon at the bottom of your screen, and the clerk will let me know that you wish to be recognized, and we will do that. We'll alternate between people in the room and people who are online. And once that's exhausted, everybody has had one chance to speak for 3 minutes. We will answer the questions and comments. Then everything is taken back before final decisions are made for further consideration by our finance committee, and by extension, the full governing body. Also on the line, and I wasn't sure if he would be able to join us tonight, is our CFO, who probably had the best excuse of anyone for potentially missing this meeting, because his wife is due to have a baby at any point. So if he has to excuse himself, it's for the absolute right reason. So welcome, Issa. I'm glad you're on line. Couple things. What keeps me up at night? The things that keep me up at night, worried about Leonia, are redevelopment, revitalization, affordable housing, and the budget. The very future of Leonia, for example, depends on getting revitalization and redevelopment correct. We are dealing, I believe, very well with affordable housing. Because we have done what we've done, we are not in as much danger as I thought we would be at this point. And every year when we deal with the budget, we set the table, especially with the capital budget, for years to come. So all of our decisions by this governing body are made with the emphasis placed on what's right for Leonia in the longer term. And one thing that I have learned as mayor, and I mentioned this the other night, is that real progress is rarely loud. It's frequently the result of long meetings, difficult conversations, not always getting what you want in the moment, but always keeping the long view in mind. And I assure you that that's what we try to do as a governing body, and I think we've been fairly successful so far. So let's go to this next slide. And I want to make sure everybody's anchored, first of all, in what we're talking about tonight. Now, there's two pie charts here. The first pie chart, you have to understand that the municipal government represents only 30% of your taxes locally. That means for every dollar in local tax that you provide to the municipal government, 30 cents on that dollar goes to fund the DPW, the fire, the police departments, and all the things that are in our operating and capital budgets. The rest of it, if you look at the pie chart on the left, and I know this is small, so I'll walk through it with you. The rest of it, 58% goes to the schools, and the county gets approximately 10%. So that's where we're not talking about the county piece tonight. We're not talking about the school piece, because the New Jersey legal requirements separate the Board of Education from municipal government. So the Board of Education controls the 58% of the tax dollar that they collect. That's separate and distinct from municipal government. Of course, we coordinate our efforts so we're not duplicating where we can. The right-hand side of the pie chart here, and I don't expect anybody to see this, but I will review it. And the people who watch this video after the fact, and far more people will watch this video than are able to attend virtually today or in person, because they can do it at their convenience as they commute to and from work, on the bus, whatever. You can see the slices of the pie and how that is divided up. 16% to the police. Well, number one priority of local government is safety and security. The only 24/7, 365 fully paid department on our books is the police. Of course, the fire department is also 24/7, 365, but they are volunteers and we don't pay the payroll, which every time you see one of our firefighters, thank them for their service, because that is an enormous amount of money that they are saving this borough through their service. And just if you take, and this will come out a little bit later, but I'm just going to mention it because it's sort of related to the right side of the pie chart. if you add up the cost of health benefits, retirement benefits, and the cost of sewer disposal in Leonia in 2026, and these are, by the way, expenses we do not control. So what that costs us is given to us by someone else, typically the state or the county when it comes to sewer. You add those up, it's roughly $4.1 million of our budget just for those three items. That dwarfs the single largest expenditure of our pie here, the police department, which comes in at $3,300,000. So I want to give you an idea of the scale here of some of the largest expenses, and appreciate again that the fire department, which is down there for 100,000 or less, it's less than 100,000, is strictly operating on a volunteer basis and saves us an enormous amount of money. Let's go to the next slide. These are the things that your tax dollars save. And in the bottom right, you see a little, we're going to get that moving for you. You're going to see the snow plow moving in a second. So this last snowstorm was record breaker. I don't know how many of you know that. Did you know that that was the most we ever had in Leonia? 1947 was 27.5 inches. This, according to the Weather Service, was 29.7 inches in Leonia. So we broke a record. We weren't looking to do that. But when I say that there are things that I lose sleep over, while I never take for granted snow removal, I have such confidence, and you should too, in the caliber, the professionalism, and the competence of our departments. The DPW does a fantastic job. We were one of the first towns in this area on this last storm, despite 29.7 inches, to see blacktop on our roads. The fire department sent a group of firefighters to the firehouse to wait out the storm so they could respond directly from the firehouse instead of trying to navigate from home to the firehouse to save a lot of time. And the police put extra people on. So as mayor, you might think that I never take it for granted, but I really don't have to worry that much that our people know what they're doing and they get the job done. And your taxes pay for all of that. You see the police there. So the officer sitting in the car, he's on the operating budget. The car itself is part of the capital budget, right? The firefighter sitting in the cab, he's really not being paid. He's a volunteer, but that truck isn't cheap, and that's part of the capital budget. The library, that's the operating budget, unless we're buying something in terms of infrastructure improvement that's going to last multiple years. You have the senior center up on the top. That's obviously operating, and Broad Avenue improvements, that's the capital budget. Let's talk a little bit about the trajectory of some of the things that changed. So when I became mayor, we made a number of cuts, painful cuts in our operating costs primarily. We cut DPW and we cut the library, and it was right down to the bone. It was difficult. And at the time, when we came in at a 2.98% municipal tax increase, I said to everybody, look, we're coming in under inflation, which is good. But we cannot expect that this is the way we can continue to control our costs. We have really cut as much as we possibly can. So the real secret here is to figure out how to increase our revenues and our ratables and start to move the proportion of the burden on taxes from the homeowner to commercial and retail establishments. We're going to talk a little bit later about how we have moved the burden from what was in 2024, 93% on the homeowners, to today, as a result of the reassessment, primarily to 86%. That 7% swing makes a difference in terms of how much you have to pay in taxes. We also postponed some of our capital investment, and you have to be very careful when you do that. You don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face. In 2025, the costs we controlled went up 1% to 2%. But again, we were hit with what we saw this year. The costs we do not control hit us very, very hard, particularly with health and retirement benefits. You see, it was up 23% and 8%. The municipal tax increase, therefore, was 7.8%. We made some targeted cuts. We deferred where we could. We made capital investments only where we felt it was essential, and we doubled down on the revenue growth. Again, redevelopment, revitalization keep me up, because if we don't get that right, our very future is at stake. And the model that we've had previously, where 93% of the tax burden was on residential homeowners, is not sustainable. In 2026, again, our controllable costs, what we control, went up 1% to 2%. The 37% increase in healthcare kills us, kills every single person in this room. And when Christoph and I and Marissa and the rest of the governing body heard about that, we knew we were in trouble, because that by itself is already more than $600,000 in additional costs for exactly what we were already receiving previously. The increase in insurance costs to the borough over the last 4 years has been astronomical. We now expect the tax increase for this year to be between 6% and 7%, with all the changes that we're going to discuss today, including the scrutiny that we put on the capital budget, not just the operating budget. And we're beginning to see a shift in favor of more commercial burden, which I think is overdue, but we're starting to see it. So with that as an introduction, I'm going to turn it over to our chair of the Finance Committee, who, along with the rest of the Finance Committee, have worked really hard to present a budget to the governing body that makes sense and is the right balance. So, Christoph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everybody's still awake? I mean, it's somewhat dry material, but it hits everybody's pocketbook. And again, they're all volunteers here. I'm doing that now for the third time. I'm still learning. So forgive me if anything may not make much sense and we figure it out, but this is how it looks. So here, there are going to be 2 pages. One is the good one here, which is this one. And then there will be the not so good. So what's helping us this year is we actually don't have very costly litigation. The mayor was talking about that a little bit, and if you look at surrounding towns, there are a lot of developer lawsuits going on. We don't have, I don't want to say we don't have any of this, but what we had, we were able to settle. So we had a lot of money in the legal budget, which we didn't need, but helps us with the surplus. And knock on wood, this year also looks like it should be all right. On affordable housing, and that's going more to the future, but we are now in a position where we can actually collect developer fees. This will be helping us as well. And we're also beginning to see a pipeline of revenue projects, revenue generating projects, meaning increasing the tax base one way or the other, which will help us for the coming years. And then I have to explain the police a little bit, but it's a big item there. So to understand the police, and I learned that as well, it goes in a cycle, right? We have a police department, give or take 20 officers. And when you're a police officer, you start with a not so good salary, given that you have to have a college degree, but it goes up, right? They make good money and they deserve it. They do have a hard job. But there's a real difference in cost between young officers and more senior officers. So when 3 senior officers retire in 1 year, which is unusual, and you hire then 3 young kids out of college, it has a real significant 6-figure impact on the overall payroll. It has us this year, and that helps us this year. But of course, that will offset itself in the coming years, but we take what we have. And so those are the things which actually, when I was looking at the budget with the finance committee, they helped us. The mayor has spoken about that. Health benefits are out of control. It is not limited to the state, to Leonia. Anybody who has a health plan sees the deductibles going up, and that's something we can't control. Engineering, we also have seen a steady increase, and we're starting to put the brakes on it to the degree we can. Some of it has to do with your traditional projects of road building. Others have to do with a lot more stormwater and flood management projects, which we didn't used to have. The engineering there is quite costly. And that leads me to the DPW. They have a significant increase of 10% this year, but it's not because they're wasteful, quite the opposite. But their work has increased. Like, it used to be garbage and recycling. It's that. And then there's also stormwater management, environmental work, things which just weren't there before, and that drives up the cost. And then our debt service. So our debt service is very stubborn. It's sitting right now at $2.7 million. It was there last year. It used to be between 1.6 million. And this building we're in has a big chunk to do with this, also the turf field. And I'm not saying that we don't need this building. Our police department was in no condition, like, forget it, right? It was next door. It had to be replaced. We were out of compliance with any law under the sun. But, and I'm going to go that in a minute, that's some of the things you have to deal with as a small town, where you just can't spread it. But the debt service of this size is very difficult. So here's, like, I'm kind of want to tell a little bit of a story, but you probably all know it. Like, what does it mean to live in a small town? Like, we have some things which are in our favor. We have a very efficient police department, also a thing I learned. Because as a volunteer, you get to be on the police commission sometimes. So our police department has per residents, per 100 residents, 1,000 residents, the least officers almost in Bergen County. Which, of course, the police chief may sometimes think he needs more, but we also have one of the lowest crime rates. And the secret sauce is that our police officers get to do everything. They make arrests, they do traffic, they do CPR, they help with snow, they do everything. Like, if you're a police officer in Leonia, you're a Swiss Army knife. Those guys are really efficient. The mayor has spoken about the volunteer fire department. Like, if we wouldn't have volunteers in the fire department, firefighters, if they're professionals, their salaries, as I understand them, are near what police officers make. And that's really expensive. Now, we wouldn't necessarily have our professional fire department. I guess we would, hell, we need our volunteers, right? But if we would have to take over, like, say, hey, Englewood, Fort Lee, take us, that would be a huge, huge bill. So that helps us. The DPW helps us because they're also extremely efficient. They do great work, good quality, and then they're not idling around. And we have a very lean Borough Hall. There are many part-timers working in Borough Hall because there's just not enough work for, let's say, full-time electric inspector, right? So we have a lot of part-timers. And one thing about part-timers, which is good for the employer, is they don't get benefits. And we all know now what benefits cost. Now, what works against us is the commercial. We don't have much business in town, relatively speaking. And it just takes a lot of investment to run a small town. Like this building we are in, like if you are your own town, you need a courtroom, and the state is going to tell you exactly what the court has to be. That's why it looks the way it looks, right? And at least we double use it for council chambers and other events. You need a police department. There's a lot of fixed costs just to run a town. And it doesn't matter whether you are 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000, you still need a building like this. Which leads to high debt service. And then again, you have great management, but you can't spread the cost of running the town over like 20,000 people. So, and when it comes to equipment and the fire department or the police, but we have a lot of very expensive equipment that you need, even the DPW. It doesn't get used a lot, but you must have it because if you need it, you need it, right? And therefore you need to buy those very high cost equipment items, even though most of the time they're just maybe sitting in the garage because you must have it, because you need it if something happens. So that's kind of what New Jersey did to itself like over 100 years ago when people decided that everybody wants to have his own town. It has a lot of benefits, the Borough of Leonia, etc. But today is a budget town hall, right? So it's,
And on that note, I don't know how many people appreciate the fact there are 500, no other state has this, 546 municipalities in the state of New Jersey, 70 municipalities alone in Bergen County.
yeah, so it's a little unusual, right? But apparently we all want that because we all live here, we all vote. Try to merge, all right. Going back to the numbers, there are two charts you can't really read that well. So I'm going to be brief on that. The top one, I just put a couple of buckets, like basically salaries and wages, employee benefits, and operational. Those are the first three. They take up the lion's share of the budget. It goes mostly to the people, which is normal. What is not normal, if you compare the top left columns there, like the, you can see it, like those, the salaries and wages on one side and employee benefits. It looks like that benefits 60% of the salary right now. Looks like if I just look at the height of the columns there. So there's something out of whack. Lower side is when I break it down, and it's really, I don't need to talk to it too much. It's the same thing as the pie chart at the beginning. The biggest departments are police and DPW, and then debt service, health benefits, and retirement benefits are the next week. So you've heard that before. This, I'm not going to go through it, but it's deliberately in here because if any of you wants to know the numbers, this will be posted on the Borough website. So what this shows is but the last 5 years of budget, including 26. 26 is of course preliminary, and how it's being spent. So if you want to know in more detail, that's the place to find it. Because I think the budget town hall should have actually the actual numbers. Capital. The mayor has explained it. Those are the big ticket items. If you don't pay out of the year immediately, it's basically if we do capital, we borrow it. Everything gets borrowed, right? We put 5% down, and then with the excellent credit rating, no joke, seriously, of Bergen County and Leonia itself, we get relatively low interest loans, but it adds to the debt service. And we are, for the last 3 years, and I think for years to come, we are putting the brakes on capital. Like we will still pave the roads if we have to, but there's just no money for big items because we have to see the debt service to come down first because it hits directly on the taxes, right? And then there's a little bit of street pavement going on. I think the latest news is we actually going to do it, right? Oakland Avenue. That's Oakland Avenue. DPW needs a couple of equipments, one truck. The rec center needs a new HVAC system and some cameras. The fire department has a laundry list of relatively small items, but they need the money. Like, for example, they had how many reports? 3 new reports. They need basically uniforms turned up here, so it's not cheap. The library, it's mostly for an elevator repair there. The police needs a car to replace, which has 180,000 miles on it. So, yeah, we run them all, right? Well, not all of them, but that one. Borough Hall, there's a fire escape, and we need a couple of computers. That's really the planned capital budget. The green is a grant. We would like to see more grants, and I think that's another theme where we can do more than we're doing today. A grant is basically the state or the federal government gives you money. And you just have to go after them. And it's not that we're not doing that, but we can do it maybe in a more targeted way, be more proactive, so we get more grants and have to spend less of our tax, like it's all taxpayers' money, of the local taxpayers' money for that. And again, same thing, here's a detailed list, but I just went through that. And now this is actually the last page here, the reassessment. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the budget, right? I think you got the idea, like we put the budget together every year and it's just what's running, what it costs to run the borough. The reassessment is required by law, has to happen every 10 years or so. I think we always extend it a little bit, but it's just a matter of fairness to make sure that all the properties are assessed uniformly and like at least every 10 years. And it's a redistribution of the tax burden. So in this room, some taxes may go up, some taxes may go down, but overall, the taxes are not rising because of the reassessment. And like the mayor said, it has in the first row, we heard that the tax burden has shifted from 93% residential to 86% residential. So, but I'm hesitant to do any math on that. I could. I'm not taking it home to the bank, but it's a good sign, right? I mean, we just got those numbers very recently, and we'll see what it means, but it looks like a good thing. So with that, I think we are coming to question and answers.
Thank you, Christoph, and thank you to the Finance Committee and to Marissa for all the work to put together a budget. So here's where we get to you and the purpose of the town hall. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your questions. If you're in the room, you just raise your hand. 3 minutes per speaker. Come up here. Make sure the green light is on the microphone there, so everybody can hear you. We have quite a few people online. We'll go back and forth, mix it up a little bit. I'll take notes of what everybody says. The clerk is going to make sure the official record reflects what you said, who said it, so that it's not only passed along to the Finance Committee and the governing body, but you can be assured that we're hearing what you have to say. And the timing of this is before we finalize anything, we want to get the public input and answer questions. So I'll attempt to answer, the questions that I can. I'll refer to my colleagues here and our CFO, who is online as required. So who wants to be the brave person? Breaks the ice. Let's start in the room first. And again, 3 minutes per speaker, and I'll keep everybody to 3 minutes so that we can ensure that everybody gets a chance online who wants to speak. So if anyone wants to speak in the room, just raise your hand. Maybe we'll go online and have somebody who if you're online, hit the hand icon at the bottom of your screen.
Currently, no one's raised their hand.
Okay, we'll give it a couple. And while people are waiting, Marissa, can you talk a little bit about grants, what our focus on grants is going to be? Because to Christoph's point, this is really important. And in the first year that I was mayor, we doubled our grants. This past year, we tried to go after a $26 million grant. We were not, unfortunately, successful. That was a long shot, but it's always worth trying. So Marissa, can you talk a little bit about our approach to grants, please?
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Of course I will. So I've been with the borough just over 2 years now. So when I came onto the job, we were right in the middle of budget season. Quite overwhelming for me, trying to figure out where all the money is, who's doing what to whom. As soon as we got through that, I started looking at the grants, flying back all over the table. I think at the time, grants sound like a great idea, free money. But I think the approach we had used in the past with grants is to be mesmerized by the free money, and then we'd say, let's use it for some project. Well, the money was never really free. The engineering costs are not covered by grants for the most part. And so you think you're getting a $50,000 grant, but it ends up costing you $65,000 in addition to that, and maybe you don't want to do that project. So we tried to flip it around. My vision on grants, and I think it's shared by the Finance Committee, is let's figure out what we need to do. What is our vision? Where were we going to spend the money anyway? And I think actually, Jonathan, if you can go back to that bar chart on the capital that we had, this is the chart. We put together not a one-year plan, but what is our 5-year vision of where we need to spend money? This is where we're spending money in 2026, but we have a few other charts of where we are going to be spending it in 27, 28, 29, and 30. It's actually required by the state to have a 5-year vision. And rather than have somebody say, look, there's a grant, you want to apply for it, we flipped it around and said to our grant writer, this is what we need the money for. We, in fact, beginning from here, we have DPW needs they have their needs for some new trucks and new equipment. We have the recreation center needs an HVAC system. All the way over to the side, Borough Hall needs a $40,000 new stairwell at the back of the building. And what we're doing is taking a very targeted approach to say we have to spend this money anywhere. Find somebody else besides Leonia to pay for it. So I'm going to focus on the recreation center. They need a $150,000 HVAC system. Half of that is going to get paid for by PSE&G. They have a lot of money in the coffers to pay for cost-efficient equipment and HVAC. So already that cost will net come down by $75,000. We're going after another grant to pay for that other 75. So in the end of it, we might get a free HVAC system for the recreation center. We were going to pay for it anyway, but how nice that we found somebody else to do it for us. So that is all the green that is on this chart. Wouldn't it be nice to have green straight across so our net capital will be zero? So that is really our approach, is to figure out what we need and then find money for what we need and be very focused on that.
I thank you, Marissa. I think it makes a world of sense that we have a targeted strategy, that we go after the things that we know we need, as opposed to getting a grant and backing into whatever that grant was involved with, and then having some associated expenses that add up and added to the operating budget burden. So I think this is a much better way to go, and I look forward to how that pans out. Before I open it up to questions again, I want to say, as I look around the room, it reminds me that volunteers are the backbone of this community. Everybody sitting up here from the governing body is a volunteer. I see the chair of our planning board. I see other planning board members. I see members of the Board of Education. I see the Sculpture Garden Committee. I see Age Friendly. I see the Arts, Mayor's Advisory Committee on the Arts representative. This community works as well as it does because ordinary people, average citizens, step forward to volunteer their time to make our community better. The job the governing body has is a difficult one, but this can't be done without everybody sort of all pulling in the same direction. And I couldn't be prouder of this town in terms of the volunteers that regularly step forward. So when I send out my status reports every month, and I will frequently mention we need a volunteer for this or volunteer for that, without fail, without exception, I've had volunteers step forward to help. And I do have a call for volunteers in this next status report that I send out Thursday or Friday relating to the data committee that we're setting up. It's a very specific sort of skill profile. But the diversity of this town and the commonality of being here and having pride in our community is translated into a wonderful sense of volunteerism. And that makes me really, really happy. So if there are any questions about the budget, you can raise your hand. We can answer it. Any comments about the budget, you're online, you hit the hand icon. If there are none, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. That's fine. The next step is that this will be up within 24 hours on the website as a recording. All the information will be visible, the presentation. There is a info@leonianj.gov email that you can use to send in any comments. You can contact any of us, and we'll make sure that it's weighed into the equation. Nothing that this administration is doing is behind, closed doors. We're going to be incredibly transparent. And I have found that this is the 8th town hall that we have sponsored. We've had flooding, we've had traffic, we've had multiple town halls about the budget, about redevelopment. We will continue to do that. And that's in addition to all the mayor and council meetings and all the planning board meetings where everybody can also attend. So we will make sure that we push as much information out there so people are informed and can participate, understanding what's going on. Anybody come on?
Currently no one online.
Please. Yes, you have to come up here. You have to state your name and address for the record so that it's also on the video.
You'll have to press the button on the microphone to turn it on.
Thank you. Helen Dalton, I live on Broadway. If we don't get the grant from PSE&G, what happens then?
Any other questions?
Yes. If you said at the beginning that DPW and the library had massive cuts, are they still functioning as well with the massive cuts?
I'll answer that, right?
Okay. And if they are, then are there anything else that we could have cuts?
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. I'll answer everything at the end of the comments. Anybody else in the room? Mike?
Mike DeGidio, 129 Chestnut. One quick question. It's clear from the presentation that healthcare costs are totally out of control and beyond the control of the mayor and council. Are there any options that a municipality has to look at things? I believe Leonia is part of the state health benefits plan, where the employees could get the same level of benefits. I would not advocate for cutting or reducing the healthcare that they're getting, but are there any options where the private market would offer the same type of coverage at lower cost, given that it doesn't look like the state is doing anything to try to curb? I think it's 60% over 2 years or 62% over 2 years.
Thank you.
We do have someone online.
Okay, let's do the online. Who is it?
Dave Chajes.
Yeah, my name is Dave Chages. I live at 144 Broad Avenue.
So, Dave,
hi.
You need to turn on your camera.
I need to turn on my camera. Okay, just a moment. Sorry, y'all. Technical difficulties.
We can always come back to you. Okay, there you go. You have the floor.
Excellent. Thank you. My question is regarding the tax base. I saw a slide that said property taxes represented 86% of the town budget. Is that accurate?
Okay, so I'll answer that later. Do you have any other questions?
I'm sorry, just give me one moment. The promotion of the residential tax credit. My main question is, what are we, as a town, what are we doing to increase revenue generated through taxes from other businesses? I understand that recently there's been some discussion about businesses closing in Leonia. I just wanted to understand, how are we attracting other viable options, or going about that if we are?
Okay, very good. Good question. Anything else, Dave?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Alan Feldman, 187 Christie Street. First of all, thank you all for the transparency. I realize, the last few years in particular, it is great knowing the things that we learn, even if what we learn isn't always what we want here. Two revenue-related questions, and one was really just asked, which is, there are a lot of vacancies in town. What is being done to increase that tax base and to help the town gain from businesses? And the other question really is, I know we've talked about the redevelopment. Is that in a stage where it is actually providing money to us? I know that, there was talk, I think BlackRock bought one of the buildings, near the high school. Is development as part of the redevelopment plan? Is that actually bringing capital to Leonia at this point? Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Currently, no one else online.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, closing the public comments period. Thank you all. Let me, thank you, everybody. Appreciate those questions. In the order that they came in, let's tackle it. Okay, Helen, the grant from PSEG, this is for the lights.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm going to ask Marissa to answer the PSE&G grant question, if she doesn't mind.
Sure. With any of the capital, we are committing as a community to purchase those items with or without grants. Grants are icing on the cake. So when we get the grants, it abates our expense for those. So to specifically answer your question, if we don't get the PSE&G grants, we will, if it is approved in the capital, we will continue with that project. But PSE&G has actually committed to 50% as long as we have a qualified air conditioning system.
Thank you, Marissa. So to answer your question about the DPW, the cuts 2 years ago. So when I became mayor, seems longer than it was, but it was only January 2024. There were some substantial cuts. In particular, I mentioned the DPW and the library. The library, for example, their funding level still has not come back from what it was. It's not terribly below, but it was a substantial cut in 2024. And the library, because of the strength of the staff and the fact that they dramatically ramped up private donations, made up for the cut through their expertise, their efficiency. And I remember I hosted at least one fundraiser. My wife was the president of the board of trustees. We had, you may remember, a big fundraising event at the library, a dinner and a concert in this room that raised a tremendous amount of money. And that was then used to make up for the tax dollars that weren't there. And patrons of the library and supporters of the library turned out in droves to support that effort. I can see as a general trend that we as a community will probably have more opportunities to privately fund through fundraising departments when, we have to make cuts. The library is beloved in this town. And it is, the usage is off the charts. You go there, it's just jammed. And all the data supports a, upward trajectory in terms of its use and what they're doing. So that's how we've tried to overcome that. But as responsible stewards of, the scarce tax dollar, we have to sometimes make tough decisions. And that was a tough decision that we made. And the community stepped up. My wife, myself, others sitting up here were very involved in the library effort and raised money another way. So I can see that happening a lot more. Mike, you asked about healthcare costs, and yes, 600,000+ you saw here, it's huge. So the quick answer is that we have challenged the insurance group that we're associated with as a municipality to come up with alternatives. And there were no alternatives that we could take advantage of this year. But the JIF, the Joint Insurance Fund that we're a part of, is committed to thoroughly researching, at the request of the governing body, alternatives for next year. The answer may be the same, that it doesn't make as much sense. So we'll stick where we are because we have to provide the same level of benefits to our employees. Marissa had spearheaded an effort not too long ago, which was very creative, and we may revisit that, where we pay higher premiums and there's higher deductibles, but it doesn't increase our ultimate out-of-pocket expenses. And that may be a way to bring things down. So we're running the numbers and looking at that, and that's still pretty much on the table.
I will mention one thing, that the healthcare is so impactful, not only to the budget, but for people personally. Keep in mind also that the employees contribute to their healthcare. It's not just free for them. So when healthcare goes up 36%, their contribution also goes up 36%. So we're really all in this together, the borough as well as the employees. So we have to get the whole thing reduced. And in fact, we are meeting with our healthcare representatives or brokers in a few weeks, because this is so important. We're beginning now for 2027.
Thank you. So, Dave, the figure you mentioned, the portion of the municipal tax dollar, the portion of your tax dollar that goes to municipal government is 30%, so 30 cents on every dollar. The 86% figure that you referenced is the new percentage that we're anticipating based on the reassessment that represents the total burden of the municipal portion of the tax dollar on our taxpayers. Previously, that burden was 93%. Today, we're estimating, based on the reassessment, that it has moved down to 86%, which is good for all of the homeowners, but increases the load that's paid by the commercial and retail establishments in town. Increasing revenue in Leonia and other opportunities. So our number one priority, numero uno, is redevelopment and revitalization. There's a comprehensive redevelopment plan that's online. I encourage you and everybody else who cares about the future of the town to look at it. The planning board, the mayor's advisory committee on redevelopment, revitalization, the governing body all worked very hard on this. And the primary focus of the redevelopment plan is for the Fort Lee Road corridor, Fort Lee Road below Grand Avenue, and along the Willow Tree Road corridor. That's referred to as mixed use 1 and mixed use 2 in the plan. I don't want to get into the details of the plan, but I will say that the next phase, what we're doing next, is we're going to develop a plan for Broad Avenue. So stay tuned and please participate as a member of the public in the discussions that will take place about Broad Avenue. You had mentioned, Dave, also, Alan had mentioned, so I'll go to what you had said, Alan. The prospect of light rail coming into Leonia, which despite how long this has taken and the uncertainty with the current administration and federal funding, seems more and more likely. And we're beginning to see the impact, the real impact of what people presume will happen. So there is a one-story warehouse at the end of Willow Tree Road closest to the high school. And for those of you who haven't heard this, the land and building, it sits on 2 to 3 acres of property. The land and building was assessed at approximately $8 million. Well, a very reputable international real estate group with deep pockets and a lot of expertise swooped in. This was not for sale, and bought it $30 million. Now, why would they pay that kind of premium? Because they're betting on the future. They're betting on the fact that this property down there is going to be worth a lot more. And not surprisingly, because part of our redevelopment effort is proactively engaging developers in discussions. We don't wait for them to come to us. We actually reach out to them and we say, hey, let's talk about what you have in mind for your new property or property that you're considering on buying, because this is what we want to see. And we take out our development plan and we review what they can do. Having that discussion paves the way for a much more meaningful dialogue between the two parties, which will ultimately result, we believe, in a much better arrangement for Leonia and something that's in keeping with our plan versus completely different from what we had envisioned. We will continue to have those kinds of discussions. Now, the impact of them coming in and buying it for $30 million does not, if I extrapolate from what you said, that does not automatically mean that their property is worth $30 million assessment value. There's no doubt that it will influence the assessor's determination on what the land and building is now worth. And there's no doubt that the new amount of money that was paid will be used as a comparable when other assessments in the area are made. So yes, there's going to be a slight increase in taxes and rateables from that simple equation, but the real payoff, Alan, comes from the implementation of the plan. And if we get, for example, that group in particular happens to own a boutique hotel. Now, they're not currently looking at that property as a possible boutique hotel. They're happy to run it as they said this to us. We're going to run this as a warehouse for however many years. And then we'll assess when light rail comes in if we want to do something else. But let's say they bring in a boutique hotel. Leonia, that's one of the biggest rateable earners for Leonia. Not only do you get the money associated with a high rateable, and then that's taxes, but they pay a room charge tax for every guest that comes to Leonia. That would be very nice. Very, very nice for us. So, we are seeing limited right now input in terms of revenue along the lines of what I've suggested, but the real payout will be well past when I'm done with my 4-year, right? We'll set the stage. If I go for 8 years, we'll see, but we're setting the stage for a longer term success. And I hope that the light rail comes in sooner rather than later, because that will really help. I think that was it. Christoph, is there anything that you want to add? There's a question online? No, I did. Christoph, you want to add anything?
Well, since you asked me, not so much really. I think I'm cautiously optimistic. Like last year was it's a little bit brighter this year, I think. And I also have seen like there are some good real estate developments happening in public, like this house which burned down on Broadway Road. Like there's a multi-use, multi-story building coming in. It's very nice. We have something hopefully coming to the planning board maybe in 2 months, which would be nice. And yeah, I think I personally see more bigger ticket items coming to Leonia in the last couple of like 6-9 months.
I'm going to add one thing and we'll end on this note. You're going to hear, I'll be announcing in my status report, you may see a newspaper or 2 article about this in the next couple of days, tomorrow, next day. Leonia has signed a memorandum of understanding to lease to the Teaneck, the township of Teaneck, the land that's north of our own DPW facility. Now, you cannot reach our DPW facility today along a Leonia road. You have to go in to the Overpeck Park driveway, right? You know, remember where the dinosaur park was? Past that is our DPW building. Then past that today is where Downs Tree Service has run a mulching operation for years. In 2016, when I joined the town council, we got no money, zero, for that lease. There were some in-kind services that we were getting instead. Basically, they would give us free mulch and we could dump our leaves, which was important. Since I've been on the council and with the then mayor's, support, certainly, we ramped up the cost of what Downs was paying us. We were approached, so that fee now, the annual fee that Downs pays us for that mulching ground is a little bit north of $125,000 a year. And anytime you can get money like that, to go from 0 to 125,000, that's $125,000 that you guys don't have to pay to support the services that we're all enjoying. And that sort of operation requires no effort on our part, really. We don't, there's no kids going to schools. There's nothing. We just get the money because it's land that we're giving them. So when Teaneck last year, or the year before, came to us and said, look, our DPW building is past its prime, and we want to leave the location where it is because we have other ideas for how we want to use that land. Would you guys be interested in leasing to us that land north of your DPW? So what you're going to hear in terms of the announcement is that we have settled on $286,000 a year for 50 years because they're going to build their own DPW building and facility there. We will maintain independence. Our DPW will be independent of theirs, but there will be a proximity there that will encourage equipment share. And part of the deal is that we will have shared services agreements. So when you see on the capital budget a $600,000 expenditure for a jet vac sewer truck, that's what they cost. When you see that big sewer truck going around town with a big vacuum, that's $600,000. So now we're going to borrow Tenex because they have two of them. That's the idea. There'll be large equipment, there'll be small equipment. So not only do we get the money, and that's a nice chunk of change to increase some revenue, we get the opportunity to save other money by sharing equipment, which doesn't happen nearly enough in Bergen County with 70 municipalities. And the county is very supportive of this because they want to encourage more municipalities to team up. And that's what we're doing. So you'll hear that in the next couple of days. And that's a big deal. If you run the numbers and you look at the present value, it's, 14, 15, $16 million. That's good.
You mentioned there's a COLA.
Oh, yes. And we built in, of course, a cost of living adjustment. So the 286,000 doesn't remain 286,000. It will, at a minimum, the COLA will be 3% a year, or if the CPI is higher, it will be the higher amount, the Federal Consumer Price Index on an annual basis. There'll be to be absolutely complete, there'll be an opt-out for both parties at the end of 45 years. Why 45 years? Because that's the point where TNEC, given the 50-year life of a building, would have to make a decision on whether or not they wanted to rebuild there or go somewhere else. And that's a point where we might say, this land now, well, not the people sitting here, but the Leonia governing body, 50 years and 45 years in the future, 2072, will say, well, you know what? That was a good deal then, but it's not a good deal now because we do have the light rail. It's a tremendous success. We've got all these hotels, we've got brew pubs, we've got retail efforts, we've got all sorts of activities. It's a great commercial center. We're going to use that land different. So we have the opt-out for 45. You'll hear about that. We're pretty excited about the possibility. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, for participating, for learning about what's happening. I want to thank everybody who watches this video online after the fact, and for everybody who participated virtually. Please continue to be engaged in your town, and don't hesitate if you're not already volunteering to step forward and volunteer if you have the time and the interest, because we can always figure out a way to use your talent for the good. So thank you, and thank you, Christoph, and Audrey, Marissa, and Jonathan. And Isa, I hope that your wife does really well and all's good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mayor.